people are not very informed about just how much goes into mental health.
When we grew up, having a mental health as a concept was almost non-existent. What has changed?
Talking about it is what will lead to resolution and some clarity. Things like depression, anxiety, mental health, now that and they've become debilitating and affecting different aspects of life. You can't ignore it. We're constantly comparing ourselves.
The Indian mindset, honestly, is also very, very rat race oriented.
How many people and who can come? Because a lot of people are not coming because they can't afford it.
Happiness is equal to reality minus expectation.
We're almost conditioned to not be content with where we are. What people don't realize is that expectations in any relationship is against another individual who has their own life.
So mental health is the most critical thing that most of us suffer but never talk about. I'm very fortunate because today I have two experts in the studio who have been working on this field, and I'm going to quiz them and question them and try and get all the information out of them so that my mental health becomes very good. My first question really is, why did you start this?
So there are multiple reasons for it. The first and the most important being that I've had an experience of my own, wherein around 2018 I dealt with depression and I had no hope. I did not feel like I would live to see another day, which is when my mom kind of forced me to meet this one therapist and she changed my life. I think I grew as an individual. I saw life in a very different way and it made me who I am today. And that's when it kind of stuck with me that, the right kind of support can really help someone when they're feeling hopeless and helpless.
Right.
The next thing that happened was COVID hit. And I saw everyone around me going through an existential crisis. And age was not a parameter here. I saw my dad have one, my aunt have one, my sister have one, my best friend have one, her younger sibling have one. So that's when I kind of got thinking that, maybe there is an issue. Maybe people now are realizing that they're dealing with things, but because they're forced to be alone or isolated, that it's actually popping up. Which is when I spoke to Shreya, who then was a psychology student and had just started her practice. And that's when I learned that there's a major gap also. People are struggling and were struggling, and that there was no proper avenue for them. And while there were smaller organizations, there was not, a concrete place someone knew they could go to for help. Awareness is also a big issue in India as of now. But that happened, and I got into the corporate world, which is when I saw the workplace, issues that come with the workplace, anxiety, depression, work-life balance. And that's when one day I decided to quit and just start this organization.
And you were just fortunate that you had a psychologist at home and
That really helped. I think that brought a lot of comfort to me because I felt that while I don't have the domain knowledge as a business student, I did have someone that had that domain knowledge, and I was very clear from the start. My job isn't to become a psychologist. I want to enable psychologists to do what they do best.
Right.
Because when I did speak to multiple psychologists, including my sister, her co-workers, and other psychologists outside, what I learned was that even the environment in which they were functioning wasn't very helpful to their practice. They already gave 4 to 5 hours every day in sessions where it was very emotionally taxing. But in addition to that, they'd have to do admin work. They'd have to do, 4 or 5 other things that wasn't related to their natural craft. So what I realized was that I wanted to take all those variables out for them and just let them do what they do best and be the best for the clients that they have.
right. And the next question is to you, because you are perhaps the real guru, the expert who's been dealing with people. When we grew up, I mean, I'm of course much older than you, and when I grew up, going to a therapist, having a mental health as a concept was almost non-existent.
Right.
Right. What has changed? Do you think when we were young, we were just not aware? Or something has changed which has raised these problems?
I think honestly, what has really changed is the communication about it and just the fact that people are now genuinely talking about it and talking about it in a way where mental health is a priority. Um, Initially, the way people were talking about mental health was ki, there is a disorder, which is why now we'll go to a therapist.
Yeah.
So there is a problem. So someone is sick, which is why they're going. Now the dialogue around mental health has changed so much where and something I constantly say is going to therapy is not ki, I have a problem, let's fix it, or there's something wrong with me and fix it. It's genuinely just a space you can access even just to explore yourself. Sometimes we don't have the time to pause and kind of just have a conversation with ourselves, where am I? How am I feeling about myself? What is my relationship with myself? Those conversations also, we don't have the time for it. So therapy is something you can access just for that. As for the in terms of like back then versus now, there are multiple occasions where I can map through like the adults I've spoken to where they're like, oh, things happened, but we didn't seek help.
Yeah.
I don't think we had that sort of help back then.
No, we
Right?
didn't.
You didn't. Culturally speaking, we're very collectivistic in our culture, and we also don't like to talk about ghar ki baatein. So that thing of जो घर पे हो रहा है घर पे रहने दो, you know, like
Right.
what's happening at home should stay at home. I shouldn't talk about my personal life. I don't want to badmouth anyone at home, and that still prevails. You know, when even though someone might be having like a relationship issue with their parents, people are so hesitant to talk about it. But sometimes talking about it is what will lead to resolution and some clarity. And talking about it doesn't necessarily mean that you're just kind of saying they're terrible people or whatever. It just means that we're accountable, we're holding someone accountable for something. We will resolve it in our time, and then we will move ahead and grow from here. But I think just conversation, awareness, accessibility, all of that has changed. Like the government also is now really talking about mental health in a broader scope. Of course, there's a long way to go, but like when at a central and such a large level, you're acknowledging that things like depression, anxiety, mental health now that and they've become debilitating and affecting different aspects of life, you can't ignore it anymore.
You know,
Yeah.
adding to this also, very recently a relative came home close to my dad's age, and he just mentioned how unke gali mein there used to be a psychiatrist, and when they were kids, that person was called paglo ka doctor.
Yeah.
So the word pagal, by definition, has a negative connotation
Yeah.
to it,
Yes, yes.
right? To be called pagal by society is not something that people would look to be called. Like if you were seen entering a clinic for a paglo ka doctor, it means तुम पागल हो.
Yes.
तो मैं क्यों जाती या क्यों जाता ऐसे सिचुएशन में वो प्रेशर ही मेरे को जाने नहीं देता इवन इफ आई वाज इन अ डेस्परेट सिचुएशन आई थिंक एज श्रेया सेड द आइडिया एंड यू नो आई थिंक कंटेंट नाउ both abroad and in India is evolving in a way where they're showing therapy in a very new light. Therapy is being normalized. For example, now you have shows like Shrinking. You have shows that actually bring out how talking to someone leads to the character arc or the character development in a lot of these shows. Dear Zindagi, for example, was I felt it was revolutionary for the Indian audience.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because that is how all therapy goes, but because people looked at therapy in a different light. Seeing Shah Rukh Khan as a therapist, who wouldn't
Yeah.
want to?
Yeah.
But it's changing, slow and steadily, but it is in a good way.
The other thing which, I mean, if you ask me, again, I'm coming from that generation where it was paglon ka doctor and it is ghar ki baat bahar nahi karni hai and all that stuff was there. But the other thing which I look back and you can dispute it is that because we didn't have this device, we didn't have the phones and the social media and Instagram and the reels and we didn't know what my cousin in New Jersey is doing. We didn't know what my cousin in Newcastle is doing. We were living in our own sort of life. And so this concept of boredom never existed. You went to school, college, came back home, did your work, went out to play, and life moved on. But today people have so much knowledge and awareness of what is happening in your friends, in the larger ecosystem. Is that contributing to your depression, to your anxiety, to feeling low?
You know, like even when I compare, suppose even my childhood compared to like the sort of childhood that people have now,
Yeah.
I remember that. I mean, I didn't have a phone till I got into college. That was something my parents are very like very aware about. I didn't need it, and it was just something they had thought of, and I guess at some level I thank them for it too because I knew what to do with my time. Like
Right.
I was an avid reader. Sure, I watched TV, that was limited. I would go out and play. I mean, eventually 11th, 12th, mein, it was just studying, so that didn't really matter. But you know, I think what has happened with essentially having the world in your palm is you have access to everything, which is great at an awareness level, but not so great at like a level where we're constantly comparing ourselves, you know, where my free time is actually me sitting on my phone instead of actually sitting with activities and things that I might really like to do. Where instead I'm not spending time with myself. I don't know how to spend time with myself. Just sitting and doing nothing. Again, I think maybe at some level back then, people were not afraid to sit with their thoughts.
Yeah.
Now I think there is a real fear to sit with thoughts
Right,
because I
right.
might start at point A, but I might just snowball and spiral to like
Yeah,
point
yeah.
orange. And I think that is also a constant like fear where we're in a world like children growing up now, especially are seeing what a competitive world is. I think we knew it was a competitive world, but we couldn't see it. But now you see it. You see it through the news. You see it accessible, like you should work this many hours. Oh, but if I don't work this much, then like, I will not get promoted. I will not earn that much money. So children are like, oh, I need to start like, doing abhi se. I have to start doing things now. I've had sessions with like 15, 16-year-olds who are like, oh my God, I'm not doing a lot. And I'm like, what are you supposed to be doing? You're a child.
The way I also see it is your generation had a lot more choicelessness. For you career paths were defined. एक सिंपल होता था
Yeah.
स्कूल जाना है, फिर या तो इंडिया में अगर वो अच्छा कॉलेज आईआईटी गए, एक्सेल आ रहा है फॉर मास्टर्स, या अब्रॉड चले गए कुछ लोग, फिर एक्सेल आ रहा है आईआईएम, अ सेट लिस्ट ऑफ कॉलेजेस.
Yeah, yeah.
एंड देन था कि फिर उसके बाद शादी होगी, फिर जॉब में एक सिंपल जॉब होगा, कॉर्पोरेट जॉब, ऐसे ऐसे यू हैव टू ग्रो, बस लाइफ यही है.
Yeah.
For younger generations now, there's a lot more choice. To be able to get up and tell your parent that, hey, I might want to be an artist, is becoming more of a thing now
Yeah.
because of social media, which is honestly great, but it does come with
Yeah,
its negatives. But I also feel that this conversation about phones and social media starts at a very grassroots level. Social media is impacting, and we've gotten this feedback from a majority of schools, that social media is impacting school students. School is a time when you're questioning your identity and society in general, and you're also creating a belief system of sorts as to who you are or who you want to be. The minute you are influenced by everything else in the world, you feel like there is so much you need to be, when in reality that might not be the case. When I was a school student, all of this had just started coming in. So, I was still in a bubble of sorts, but I could feel the pressure just then. When you were seeing an influencer on social media going on holidays, you'd just be like, hey, she's my age, she's going. What am I doing wrong?
Right.
She's earning or they're earning so much. What am I doing wrong?
Right.
And the Indian mindset, honestly, is also very, very rat race oriented. You are in a rat race, you don't know what the end goal is, but you're just racing against something at all points in time.
Yeah.
So that mindset also makes you immediately feel like you are lacking if someone else seems to be doing better. So social media has added to that.
Yeah. And my comparison, observation, and anger is on the fact that, when we were young, we didn't have too many friends. Because where will you have school friends and neighborhood friends.
Right.
Today's kids have, 3,000 friends on Instagram and 2,000 on this app and 1,000 on this app. And so that's one. The second is we didn't have too many things to do, right? What will you do? I mean, we used to play games which are really dumb, hide and seek and whatever. Or you play cricket or you play football, or that's what you will play. But today there are so many things, and online games. And so we should have been more lonely. But today, loneliness has got magnified, glorified, multiplied. Why?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do
I'm
you-
scared, but okay, yeah.
Do you have school friends you're still in touch with?
Very few.
But you do.
Yeah.
Do you have college friends you're still in touch with?
Yeah.
People from work that you're still in touch with?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. Younger generations don't. When I go out in public,
What are you saying?
When I go out in public and say that my bestest friends right now are my two best friends from high school, a majority of people, including Shreya here, has been like, "Wow, you're so lucky." When I look at people in older generations, they're still in touch with a lot of people from older parts of their life. So we might have 3,000 people on Instagram. The question you should be asking is, out of those 3,000, how many can you actually call friends? The answer will be surprising.
Right.
So, while you might have had fewer friends in numbers, in
Yeah,
quantity,
yeah.
quality-wise, your generation was clearly far closer to even that smaller group.
That is a very good point, yeah.
So loneliness in that way is far more in this generation than an older one.
Yeah, and naturally I did school and college many, many decades ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are still friends and they are
Yeah.
very close friends. So coming back to Flutter Care and the kind of work you guys do in this mental health situation in the country, what kind of people come to you guys? This is a question to both of you. What kind of people come? Is it more men, more women? Where is this problem more? If we have to look at it, is it children? Is it adults? Is it 40-year-olds? Is it married couples? Is everybody facing this? Or are some people facing this? So where is this problem more?
When it comes to, I think, just age demographics, I think my thing is that everyone has mental health concerns. I think in their own way, everyone has things that they're grappling with, and it doesn't have to be like an issue that they're facing. It could just be decision making confusions, or just I'm feeling stuck in where I am, or I'm not feeling motivated enough these days, or just the world sucks, so I really don't know what I'm supposed. I had so many of these conversations where it's like, my life is fine, but like the world is a really terrible place. So so what is the meaning of that? I think in terms of like who needs or who wants, I think everyone essentially. But when it comes to the sort of people who come to us, I think more often than not, it is the young adult to adult group. I think people in their 30s, 20s, adolescents, their teens, I think they're obviously more open to the aspect of mental health. More, I'm assuming, in their late 20s and 30s because it's accessible, more accessible for them. They're able to pay for
Sure.
it, right? Something that we've seen a lot is just the fact that people are like, I'm a college student, or I'm not in a job that is so well paying. So can you like I can't afford your fee. So that also impacts a lot right now in terms of how many people and who can come, because a lot of people are not coming because they can't afford it. So once they've gone past that, okay, stereotype, hair, okay, doesn't matter, I will still go, I will still take this chance. Once you've gone past all of that, it's also like, can I get good, affordable like therapy? In regards to the sort of clientele we get, I think the issues can range from severe, like, like more clinically stuff, which is like anxiety, depression, trauma, sometimes some personality disorders, sometimes bipolar disorder as well, OCD in some cases, a little bit of addiction also we've worked with, to a lot of life based stuff, which is trauma, sexual sort of trauma in childhood or adulthood, gender and sexuality concerns, just relationship issues, marital concerns, sometimes just being really tired, like really exhausted or really lonely, or just feeling stuck with where they are. So I think the range that comes to us is very broad. I think children can't, we don't work a lot with children as yet, but even with that, we really like to work and like want more people with neurodivergence to start coming for therapy, because we do feel that the world is created in a way that we're not making space for people who might be on the neurodivergent spectrum. So that is also like a subgroup that we work with. So there's a lot of diversity with the sort of concerns that we work with. Right now, I think we're catering more towards women as opposed to men, because I do think women are more open to it. I do feel that men face a lot of hesitation, especially because of external factors and like the pressures ki, oh, you're taking therapy, you're weak, you don't know how to handle stuff. That strength issue that comes up, that weird sort of narrative, which is why
I
there's
think
so much of hesitation.
it's deep rooted in the patriarchal mindset that has just been passed down through generations. It's not like it needs to be out there. It's just something you've grown up in. Your ancestors have grown up in, so it's just passed down almost hereditarily as a
Yeah, I've heard a lot of men just say that, they don't have the time to feel all these things. Like, they don't have the time to feel sad. They
Yeah, I
don't
would
have,
agree. I mean, from a my corporate journey, I would agree with that. Yeah.
like, I don't have the time, or I don't. I don't think anyone's going to end it. I might not even have the vocabulary, to say that I'm feeling sad or low today. So it's really difficult. I think men have started now to come for therapy, and really started to open up, because I think there's so much of strength in vulnerability. But unfortunately, when it comes to stuff like mental health, it's, are you strong? Oh, but you're emotionally strong versus you're emotionally weak. And I don't think that's anything. I don't think there's anything emotionally strong, emotionally weak. I don't think those are concepts that should exist. But yeah, I think right now more women and girls. That's what more clientele is based in that demographic. But we would love to have more men come for therapy.
Right.
absolutely. Honestly, it is more women right now, not because of what we've wanted to do, but just naturally by the kind of people coming to us.
Sure.
But does that mean we are close to the idea of men? No, we'd love to honestly go on the streets and find men and be like, hey, we can talk, we can support you, just talk to us. You don't need to deal with things on your own.
And I'm assuming it's not just at Fluttercare, but even otherwise, it's mostly women who are standing up and saying, I need help, and less men, because, like Shreya said, perhaps men, and I would include myself, we grew up in that environment of ego.
Yes.
Right? The male ego is the strongest thing that boys grow up with. Right? You need to be strong, you need to be muscular, you need to be buffed up, you need to, all that kind of stuff. Now, how can a strong, buffed up, muscular guy
Exactly.
be depressed? No. You can't be, oh my God, you're a sissy.
Even if you
Yeah.
are depressed, how can you admit you're depressed?
Yeah.
I think that's more of it. Even if I've realized, even in a majority of cases that I've heard of or looked at, the man may know that he is going through something, but is just in denial. He just pushed through. Din chal raha hai na mera. I'm able to cross 1 day, 2 day. Bas, that's all that matters. I'm not crumbling, so I will go for it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's that situation.
Yeah, so I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we often talk about like the patriarchy or like patriarchal mindset affecting women, which it does, but we can't not acknowledge that it also affects men.
Absolutely.
Right? And there is a certain pressure for men to be a certain way, where you have to have that ego, or else you are not living up to, I don't know, manlyhood or mardangi, as we
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
You are a provider. You're supposed to be the person who people take strength from. So you can't be weak. Unfortunately, that weakness is not just like physical strength oriented, but also apparently mental and
Emotional,
emotional.
yeah.
So we don't equip men with sadness or I'm not feeling okay today. I don't think we give that space also for that conversation. I mean, I'd like to think that things have changed because I'm luckily surrounded by very emotionally vulnerable men in my friend group, which is great to see. But I also see so many people within the same age group who don't like to acknowledge that something might be not okay. Like it's as though something is not. Like,
A
it's
majority of my
probably
guy
Yeah.
friends, they have a very tough time accepting that they're not doing okay. So, it's reached a stage where even after, let's say, a decade of friendship, I've created a dynamic with them now where I'll just look at them and ask them, "Are you doing okay?" They'll say no, but then the rule is you can't talk about it. You can't ask beyond that. So the bargain almost is, I've told you I'm not okay, just leave it at that. And these are people that have grown up in the same environment as I have. These are
Right.
and I've grown up in a pretty progressive environment. It's not like I have grown up hearing that as a woman, let's say, I'm less than anyone.
Right.
So similarly, I think they have also grown up in a similar environment, but it's just so deep rooted.
Right.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking sometimes.
Yeah. Now let's come to the next level of detail of mental health, right? So you used some terms, anxiety, depression, and a few other things.
Yeah.
Can you tell about each of them? What are the main things that happen? What are these called? Are these types of mental health issues?
So, well, the technical thing would be mood disorders.
Mood disorders.
Yeah, anxiety
Okay.
and depression and the mood disorder, sort of like depression, especially depression, bipolar disorder, and like the different types of depression that happen. Seasonal depression or dysthymia, these all come under mood disorders. Anxiety is a different pocket and it has a lot of like aspects to it. Then obsessive compulsive disorder, which is OCD, is its own pocket. That's a very long.
Which are the top 3, 4, 5 that you guys?
I think what we
See.
work with most commonly is now again, when I talk about mental health disorders, I always do believe they come from some sort of a context. I don't think
Sure.
a disorder just exists.
Sure.
I think there is a lot of baggage and like the sort of way I've been raised, the context I have been born into, my ancestors, what has been passed down through generations, the way I've grown up, the people I have met, everyone I've interacted with, it impacts my mental health, right? So sometimes it's also just like depression. Sometimes the question, like I think, how will you just not have a mental health disorder with the sort of situation you're in? You kind of have to be like, yeah, I'm not surprised because I understand that this would happen. So when we talk about depression or a mood disorder, what it generally means is a low sort of mood, like sadness over a period of time, a change in the way you're eating, a change in the way you're sleeping, a change in your hygiene. So sometimes people sleep a lot more. Sometimes people just don't sleep at all.
Okay.
Yeah. When it comes to eating, sometimes people stop eating, or sometimes people start eating a lot. So you see a lot of weight fluctuation and food behavior also changes. We see a lot of hygiene changes where people are not able to do basic hygiene things, not able to shower, not brushing teeth, not combing stuff, just basic washing face, basic stuff like that, because it just feels like there is no energy, there is no motivation, there is no will, like there's a hopelessness that has deeply set in. That is like the traditional way. Some people are high functioning individuals with depression, which is something like I am, where I will function like nothing is wrong, but on the inside it's like कुछ भी चल रहा है, anything is happening, like someone is really low, they're not able to function, like, so people will not realize that something's wrong, but that person is not doing okay. But depression has a lot to do with mood, and that affects like my biological factors.
So what I'm trying to get, and you are giving me that, what I'm trying to get is for the audience, a lot of us, my generation, younger generation, a lot of us don't know if I'm facing something, right? That I need therapy.
Right.
And I'm trying to get information out for the audience as to, am I feeling something? Am I facing something? So, for example, if I'm not able to have a shower for 3 days, and
Yeah.
so what are the symptoms with which I should be able to assess that? Okay, maybe I'm going through a mental health issue.
I generally try to put it across a couple of factors, right? I kind of break it down into physical, mental, emotional, behavioral. I try to kind of make that bigger overarching thing because sometimes the nitty gritty is too tough to get into. And like the big factor is this interfering with my everyday, day to day? Like, is it debilitating in a way where I'm just not able to function? You know, like the functionality is getting stuck. So when in my thoughts, it's like, am I continuously having a particular thought? Are my thoughts really negative in a particular? Like, is it just random impulsive thoughts happening all the time? Am I Am I always thinking of negative things? Am I repeatedly thinking of certain things? That is one way to go about thoughts. Emotions. Do I feel like my emotions are not in control? Has my emotional state been low over a really long period of time? Am I reacting too quickly? Am I like explosive? Am I angry all the time? Am I sad all the time? Kind of just checking in along these aspects. Behaviorally, have I suddenly started to become reclusive? Am I not talking to people like I was before? Like if I was like an avid person, I was someone who's working out a lot, and suddenly I've just stopped. You know, like big change, like big like changes in behavior. I used to sleep at 10, or like I was the healthy sleeper, and suddenly I'm not able to sleep before like 3 or 4, or even if I am, I'm not sleeping before 3 or 4. I'm sleeping too much. But I can sleep for like 16 to 18 hours. Like these, like it's the way I'm eating changing, where now I just feel like eating all the time, or I'm just not hungry at all. You know, these are certain things that you can be a little like aware of that can clue you in into just, oh, I might not be doing well. I think a lot of the times this also comes up in just my health,
Yeah.
right? My immunity can get very affected when I'm not doing mentally okay. These are like my body health and my mental health are not completely like, are not two full different entities. There's a lot of interconnection. So, you know, even being like aware of that, sometimes I ask my clients to get blood tests done. And when I see B12 and D3 come here, I'm automatically like, okay, this is also contributing to the lowness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So then, you know, like supplements, kind of like figuring out how we're supposed to like, you know, kind of like then of course whatever channel we decide to take. But these are things that, you know, we end up taking a lot into account. With women, we talk about their menstrual health a lot. Things like PCOS, irregularities is also something because hormonal levels with women keep changing a lot. So that's also something we kind of like keep in the loop. So it's a lot. I think honestly, a lot of it boils down to just being in regular conversation with self. Am I doing okay? Like, how am I feeling? And when I start to feel that, you know, I was able to do something and I'm just not able to manage that, maybe that's what I need to maybe kind of like check in.
I just wanted to add that, I'm on the other end. I'm not an
Okay.
expert in this space. I'm
Sure.
probably someone that's experienced these things. In your day-to-day life, it's very tough to sit and say, ki, oh, I'm suddenly eating too much, or keep track of, am I sleeping?
Yeah,
Some
that's what
nights
I'm
what
thinking.
happens is, I started watching a show, I have a binge watching habit. अगले 3 दिन जगी रही, तो then fourth day naturally I'm up till 4 in the morning. Your brain automatically makes you think that way. But this thing that Shreya said about, talking to yourself, it seems like a very absurd thing to a lot of people कि कौन खुद के साथ बैठ के बात करे. But I'll give you a story of what happened with me very recently. I realized, and this happened because it disrupted my day-to-day working life, that a colleague of mine was talking to me, and I was sitting with my pen and paper and wanted to take notes, and I had just zoned out of the conversation. It happened once, twice, thrice, and that's when I realized something's up. I met a clinical psychologist, had a series of interviews, tests taken, where I was diagnosed with adult ADHD. Now, it turns out that I have had symptoms throughout my life, some
Oh.
very prominent, some not. But because they didn't pass a particular threshold, it never seemed like I did.
Right.
And maybe a high stress environment, starting an organization of your own is not easy. So that high stress might have kind of triggered it to an all new level. But I was being asked questions as simple as, आप पढ़ने बैठते थे, आप book खोलते थे, and this was the extent, you'd open your book. Would you be able to follow what you were reading on one page? Would you, wake up one day, very random, आपको you'd start a hobby, पर आपको उससे interest हट जाता था. You'd get into relationships, but you'd get bored of your partner. These are not things you realize are happening to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? But like when you talk to someone that is an expert, you realize that there's just so much more to this whole thing than just what you can also see. So, I think the first step is obviously sitting with yourself and saying, do I feel okay right now, where I am, how I am? And if not, just reach out to someone that might be able to help you walk through it. Because what is also happening now is with the internet, people are diagnosing themselves.
Oh.
It's almost like people come to a therapist not to ask कि मेरे को क्या हो रहा है, but more of मेरे को depression है, तो मेरे को therapy
I've
चाहिए.
tested already on my own.
मैंने खुद I have diagnosed myself because online बोल रहा है ये I come with these 5 things. I'm guilty of it. When I had to meet my clinical psychologist, I did read up what ADHD was
Right,
about.
right.
Not that I tried to influence, of course, that conversation, but it was something I naturally did. It sticks with the person. So then suddenly, हर छोटी चीज में you feel like मैं ये कर रही हूँ, मेरे को OCD है. So for example, I was diagnosed with OCPT also, which is a sibling of sorts to OCD, the better known. So it turns out OCD is a disorder. The life of someone with OCD is honestly, you are living with anxiety, and all you're trying to do is kind of relieve yourself of that anxiety for 5 to 10 minutes until it pops up again.
Oh my God.
It almost becomes your way of life. I and the people around me believed isko to OCD hai. Why? Because I had some things I do in a particular way. It turns out I have OCPT, which is that I have obsessive compulsive personality traits. What that is now is that it doesn't define my life. It doesn't give me as much anxiety. There are things I like in a particular way, and that's it. I'd always be told by close people ki you love making lists. You live your life too much by a list. It turns out it's an outcome of that. But it's just who I am. It's never been a problem to me.
Oh my God.
It's
I've made lists all my life, and people make fun of me that I make a lot of lists.
so
He's self-doubt.
I'm scared
His
now.
entire existence.
So here's what it is. The point is you hear someone say it.
I'm being honest.
You
yeah.
might start thinking, क्या मुझे OCPT है? The chances are you might not also.
Okay.
Right? It's not that just because you make lists, suddenly you might also have OCPT. You may not. But that is something that only you can get tested and tell. It depends on the life you've lived, your
Yeah,
personality, what you do. But yeah, I think it's become such a... People are not very informed about just how much goes into mental health. It's not as easy as एक महीने से ये हो रहा है, तो अब ये हो रहा है. It's almost like पूरी जिंदगी patterns रहे हैं, but कुछ trigger करके तो अब निकल आ रहा है. So that is a lot of what goes behind it. So now it's almost like when I'm doing something and I behave a particular way, I realize, oh, I was told this is because of ADHD, but I've been doing this since I was like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And who has the time to sit and note it down from the age of like 10?
Yeah.
And like, just because you're doing something because you have ADHD doesn't necessarily make it wrong.
Absolutely.
Right? It's just your way of life. Now the point is we just need to ensure that it's regulated so that it's not kind of interfering, or it doesn't become debilitating in the sense that, oh my God, if I don't do it then my entire life is ending. Like, oh
Yeah.
no, what's gonna happen? We just kind of want to get into a place where it's like, you're doing it, it's your way of life, and if you're not able to do it, theek hai, it's fine. Again, doing things because of ADHD is not wrong. I think that's also like something I say sometimes. Anxiety is good.
Absolutely.
Anxiety is at some level asking you to be careful of something that you might not be sure about, which is essentially how we all live our life, that
Yeah.
we're apprehensive about something. But anxiety, what it does, it kind of pushes it to that level where it's like, anarthi hone wala, like the world is going to end.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to like get to a place where it's like, oh, I'm feeling anxious, that's okay. It's okay that I'm anxious. It's actually good. Like, I know that I have to be careful about something. But I just need to form that relationship with anxiety where I'm like, I understand what you're trying to communicate to me, but like, I'll deal with this now. I'll deal with whatever is happening right now.
I do also want to say here to anyone watching this that if you're being diagnosed with neurodivergence, your immediate thought is, am I abnormal? The truth is, sadly, as most things work in society, we have a definition of normal.
Yes.
So you automatically feel if I'm not in that category, I am abnormal. The truth is, everyone is normal. It's just that your way of functioning doesn't stick to that definition of normal.
Yeah.
That's all it is. When I walk into a room, especially after my diagnosis, I did have an existential crisis for a day or two. But I've realized since then, when I walked into a room, I've never felt like I don't belong, or I've never felt that I have a weakness of any kind. Because the truth is that, yes, I do have these traits. While these traits suddenly seem like a disadvantage, they've also got me to where I am.
Yeah.
And they work for me. So I don't need to function like someone that I'm not without knowing what that will bring me when I know this is working for me. You know, it's I just want to talk about that misconception around if you're diagnosed with something, it doesn't make you abnormal.
Yeah.
You're okay. There are ways to learn to be okay and sustain in the normal world as we call it.
See, the Paglon ka doctor has now become abnormal doctor.
Huh. In a way.
Yeah.
In a way.
Because nobody spoke about all this at that time. You just quietly went to the psychologist or the psychiatrist or the therapist.
Yeah.
वो पागलों का डॉक्टर था. And today you go to a therapist, so you are, क्या problem है, abnormal हो, क्या हो गया उसको, and all that. But coming back to, so is depression perhaps one of the most common things that people face?
Yes. I think different situations and circumstances in people's life more often than not translates into depression.
Okay.
A lot of just lowness, a lot of isolation, just not feeling a lot of motivation, feeling highly just, like hopelessness, helplessness, worthlessness. A lot of just conflict with self, we see translating into, depressive episodes and depression, mood disorders. Yeah.
So depression, anxiety, and a few other things. Is there a common cause? Is there a common reason why it is happening? Is it?
No.
No?
No, I don't think there is a common reason or a common cause. Some is genetic, some is environmental, some is just
Okay.
the experience that I've had. We do say that people, there is a genetic propensity that if your parents have mental health disorders, and you will be more prone to it. But again, we don't know whether that's nature or nurture, right? It's like, yeah, it could be genetic, but it could also just be that they've grown up around someone with the mental health thing, and that's the sort of like behavior they've observed for so long that that's become a part of their life as well. And or like sometimes you just grow up with someone who has a mental health disorder, and that is taxing on you, so then that means that you're also kind of dealing with your own sense of like what's going on with me emotionally and mentally. So I don't think there is like a one-all cause for everything.
Also when I got into the space, being a business background, I got into the analytical zone. कि किसी को नहीं पता वो क्या कर रहा है. I'm sure अगर ये disorders है, there will be something. So I tried to map things out, spoke to the experts, and they laugh at me. Because I'd always sit on our conference table with the team, and I'd be like, अगर 5 disorder भी ले लो, इसके core पे तो कुछ होगा.
Right.
Behavioral traits also, there will be something or the other.
Yeah.
The one thing I've learned is there's nothing.
Okay.
It can happen in such different ways. There is something called seasonal depression. Someone may be happy all year round, but when winter hits, they're suddenly depressed.
Oh.
Yeah.
It can be something just as that as a cause.
Right.
But like it can be anything. It can be anything under the sun. And the thing is, you can't generalize things here because every individual deals with different variables and stimuli in a very different way.
Right.
So it's such a widespread area. So even when you ask Shreya about what is at the core, or we won't be able to ever give you a concrete answer, is what I believe.
Yeah.
I think maybe we could list out a few feelings that we've realized a majority of people have. Is that something
Right.
that every single person feels when they go through something? No.
Right. Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I love that point that if your parents have mental health disorder, there is a possibility that you will get it, but you don't know if it's nature or nurture.
Yeah.
Because your parent might show you that behavior that you imbibe, or your parent doesn't even know how to do the right parenting, and that's how you learn it, or it could be multiple reasons.
Multiple reasons.
But the outcome is that if your parent has it, there is a chance you will
There
get.
is a
Yes.
chance. Like there is some genetic aspect, like stuff like schizophrenia and a little of the more extreme, like when we talk about like psychosis and stuff. In that, we have definitely seen that sometimes there is a genetic dispensity. Like
Okay.
like we can you can like you but and the thing is we ask, is your family prone to mental health disorders? Because depression can be also genetic.
Right,
I
right.
know of people whose grandfather had depression and one generation had depression and they also have depression. So it is very
So for
prevalent.
such people, would the advice be don't have kids?
No, I don't think so. I think see, the thing is, with medical help, like SSRIs and psychiatric help, you can manage it. I think people sometimes are a little hesitant that will I pass this along, but also you can get to a space where you're living with it and it's okay. I think a lot of it has to do with the acceptance that maybe my body is not creating enough hormone for me to be super excited and happy all the time. Fine, I will take the supplements for it, or I might take the medication for it, and then get to a place where I'm okay and I accept that this is where I'm at. So then, a lot of the battle is when you start accepting things and you start becoming just comfortable with any sense of that discomfort. You're also easily able to navigate through things.
One thing I do want to add here though is that a lot of the study of, it being genetically passed down, we also need to be very cognizant of the fact that this had to have happened in the most extreme of cases. Even depression in older generations, if you were diagnosed with depression, it means it was to a huge extent. It wasn't like the kind of issues that younger generations now would go for. It would have to be when you would have to go to a psychiatrist and then you would say ki acha this generation has it to next generation ko hai. But I think, and I'm hoping moving forward now it'll be easier to conduct the study also on more general cases, the non-psychiatric cases, because people will be more open to talk about it also. And about this kid thing, while Shreya made her answer, I have also been hearing a lot and reading a lot about how younger generations don't want kids because of the concept of generational trauma.
Yeah.
So there is a mindset that, it ends with me here because I don't, if this is coming down to me through my parents and their parents, I don't want someone to deal with all these issues because of me.
Yeah.
So it is an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
That being said, generational trauma is not about just mental health.
Yes,
I think
of course.
generational trauma is a lot to do with behavioral patterns and relationship patterns
Yeah.
and hierarchies and dynamics within family to family to family, and how gets passed down. It also means, in some cases, the historical trauma that we're with, like individuals who maybe have had the partition be a part of their
Yeah.
generational trauma that gets passed down in some way or the other through behavior, through thought patterns, through just conversation and dialogue. So yeah, along with mental health, I think generational trauma just
Sure.
covers a lot of other
Sure.
stuff as well.
There are some principles I've heard in life that I'm going to share, and I want your opinion on them. One is an equation. The equation is happiness is equal to reality minus expectation. Right? So if you came in for this podcast and you thought Amitabh Bachchan will be sitting here, you're unhappy. If you thought some really pathetic guy will be sitting here, you are happy. Putting it in very simple terms, right? Said if you're expecting, because the younger generation today is expecting a lot more material things, a lot more instant success, instant coffee, Swiggy delivering in 10 minutes and Zomato in 5 minutes and whatever. So unhappiness levels have gone up because expectations have gone up. Again, when we were young, I'm not trying to take credit for it, but when we were young, there were no things available. So as you grew up, you did better than what you had and you were happier. Whereas today, younger generation has so much disposable income, disposable goods, better houses, better cars, better infrastructure. There are malls. When the first mall was created in Gurgaon or Bangalore or these places, people were just enamored by the fact that there is a big building which is air conditioned and you can just go inside and be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is no cost to it,
Yeah.
right? Because having an air conditioner in your house was like a big deal, right? So the society was at a level where having an air conditioned space was happiness. But today you have an air conditioned space, but you also need backup generators, and the air conditioner needs to be good, and
Yeah.
it's making too much noise now, so let's
And
change
the
it.
climate just keeps on getting hotter, so it needs to be better.
Yeah.
This is funnily reminding of me of, Maslow's hierarchy.
Okay.
When my most basic needs are not met and I am able to meet them, which is roti kapda makan, like basic food, roof over my house, clothes. And when that is my day-to-day concern, and I start getting that, I'm happy. I've kind of reached that sense of, oh, I'm achieving this. You go a little higher, and it's like security. Then there's like a sense of security. Oh, I'm safe. And once I get there, that's a little better. And I think when the generation before or generation before to before, we were dealing with very basic sort of needs. Now, like people who are born now and like they're in like, and this I may be speaking about more like better, like a little like middle class to like
Sure,
above,
upper
and I think
middle
this comes
class.
to
Yeah.
like socioeconomic background. We have everything. It's given to us. So now where do we find our happiness? And that top wala layer is self-fulfillment, sense of self, self-belonging. And that is where the entire, confusion happens because we really don't know how to get to there. When you even talk about happiness as expectation and reality, what is happiness? What does it mean to be
Sure.
happy? If I have everything in the world, but I don't think that I am good enough, will it matter? No, nothing will matter. So
Fair point.
does my, again, like that sense of happiness, of course, while it is impacted by the outside factors and what I have and what I don't have, what I'm getting, a lot of it is also internal. Where am I at with myself? If I feel that I'm here, but I should be there, even though I'm like first here, I'm getting all marks, I'm earning good money, I've done everything to achieve, but I still think that I should be there. I can still be doing better. I have zero contentment. I am not actually pausing and looking around and enjoying what I'm achieving at the current moment. Then when will I be happy? Do I think that success is happiness? Do I think that, having all the money in the world is happiness? I don't think all the people who've earned the money, the richest people, are happy right now. They're doing some weird things everywhere. I don't think they're happy.
Right, right.
So, again, what
But
is
at the
happy?
same time, the people who don't have money believe they are happy. The people who have money are happier. Is that true?
हो सकता है.
It is a belief. You've grown up hearing money can buy you happiness. So it's almost instilled in you that someone more money is equal to more happiness.
Yeah.
And there are these jokes going around, and it's true that where someone has said something like, if you think money doesn't buy you happiness, give me your money. I'll test it out. But
Yeah.
it's almost like, I also think that at each life stage, and it comes down to Maslow's hierarchy. I was thinking about it too, that at each life stage, you are striving for something. At an earlier stage in your life, it's probably money. Once
Yeah.
you get that money, it might be lifestyle. Once you get that lifestyle, it might be something else. You
Yeah.
realize, अब मेरे को emptiness हो रही है. I have worked for the last, let's say, 30 years of my life. अब I want to enjoy. Then what you start doing is, chalo, let's say you start going on more vacations, you start driving that luxurious car you had always thought that has no use in your house. But then you realize कि ये सब करते करते the relationships in my life have suddenly diluted because
Yeah.
I was so busy doing my own thing. So then you
Yeah.
start working towards that. You realize वहाँ पे चीजें ठीक नहीं है. So honestly, I feel like humans sometimes are, they're working in a bit of a counterproductive way, because they are, and this comes back to that rat race that I was telling you about. We're almost conditioned to not be content with where we are. It's almost like, acha, I've passed my grade 12. You've spent 2 years working your ass off, permit me to say the word,
Yes.
studying for your boards to get
Sure.
into a good college.
Yeah.
वो कर लिया, you've gotten into a good college. Did you sit and actually enjoy the marks you got? No, because your next is, अब मेरे को college जाना है. College जाना है 4 साल, अगर आप college में हो, you have to get a good grade, because why? The end result is you will get a job.
Right.
Or then you have to do a master's. The minute you get a job, do you sit and rejoice you get your first job, or do you then look at promotion, appraisal, more money?
Right. Right.
You know,
I hope they like me at the job. I don't mess up.
then
Yeah.
it's masters. I have to give my GMAT or my other entrances, and then suddenly it's like I'm constantly studying for it. No one knows how to pause and just say, okay, you know what, just sit here. Just sit here for a second and ask yourself, is this what is bringing contentment to your life? And even if I go back to your question and look at it from a top view level and not go as in depth as we have, I don't see a problem with having expectations. For me, it's a very gray area. For me, for example,
Right.
I'm sitting with my sister. I do have expectations with her. Will I fight because of them? Yes. But I also know I have those expectations because I can. It almost makes me feel like I have that right because we have that dynamic for me to be able to expect a few things. I think the problem that comes is when your expectations start becoming unrealistic. What people don't realize is that expectations in any relationship is against another individual who has their own life, their
Sure.
own way of functioning, their own view of things.
Yeah.
So, I can sit here and expect that she's going to become the wealthiest person and give me all her money. But उसको शायद लाइफ में कुछ और ही चाहिए, उसको सन्यासी बनना है.
Right.
Good, you go do what you want to do. मतलब then I can sit here. I have two options then. Out of the love that I have for her, say, go do what you want to do and I'm here for you. Or say, no, you have to become wealthy, you betrayed me, I'm done. It's how you look
Yeah,
at it
yeah.
also. I think what, more than expectations, it is that idea of unconditional love in a relationship that does create unrealistic expectations.
And I guess all this is huge when you're school, college, work, and all that. But it becomes much bigger when you have another person who comes into your life and now you're
Absolutely.
partners,
Absolutely.
married, living in whatever relationship.
Absolutely.
But now, oh my God, now the person has to do this and I have to do this, and
Yeah.
expectations from both people, and you didn't even grow up together.
Yeah.
Right? You've known each other for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, but sometimes even just 6 months because it's an arranged marriage and you're packed together and put into a room. So I'm assuming the people that you see or in the society based on your knowledge and learning and the statistics, almost every couple must be going through
Why
these
couple?
problems.
Why couple? Anyone? We two started living with each other again after quite some time. We used to share a room till school. She went to college, and then I don't think we've shared a room per se after that.
Yeah.
When I moved back here to start Flutter, we decided to move into an apartment. We had both lived separately, alone in our own respective houses. We were used to our own way of functioning. And I had lived with her for a good 20 years, not 20, 16,
Sure, a lot of
17,
years,
which
yeah.
is which is a long time. Initially, the biggest fight used to be, I would walk out and say, घर इस time पे साफ क्यों नहीं हो रहा है? And she'd just be like, मैं सो रही हूँ. And I was in this, I would almost want to rip my hair out until one day I sat down and I was like, why am I behaving like this is someone she's not? She knows that I function a particular way because that's who I am. And I lived with her for 17 years to know how she functions.
Yeah.
It was still tough for me to accept it.
But it goes back to that thing that society has defined what is normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes we individually, so you have defined the normal time of getting the
Yes.
house cleaned.
Yeah.
She has defined the normal duration of her sleep.
Exactly.
And the two are colliding.
So what my definition of normal is and hers is different, which is when that clash happens. It isn't that my expectations stem from what I believe is normal. And her expectations will stem from what she believes is normal. We've grown up in the same environment, with the same parents, with the same variables, a majority of them at least, yet we are very different individuals. So it's bound to happen, that clash. It's the day you can sit down and say that, and we actually had this practice where she's like, if it matters to you, you get everything but my room cleaned. I will sleep.
Yeah.
And that's when it struck me, I have nothing to do with her room. That's her
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
मतलब अगर 3 कमरों में एक साफ नहीं हो रहा है तो what is it doing to me?
But वो couple में तो वो हो ही नहीं सकता ना, वो तो room same में रह रहे हैं.
Exactly. So that is when an additional layer comes in. And I think इस case में तो when you're related, you almost know कि निकल के भाग भी नहीं सकते वो सब.
Yeah.
I think with couples also what ends up happening is, and I'm a victim of this, the media that has been provided has given a very unrealistic idea of what a real relationship is like.
Of course, yeah.
Before you get married to someone or live with someone, it's more of you're meeting, but you're living in your own environments. You have that romance going on. You're not dealing with the रोज का आज maid को ये बोलना है, आज गाड़ी को servicing के लिए जानी है, आज ये. The minute you start living together, a lot of comfort also comes into play. But what ends up happening is then those sporadic romantic moments tend to reduce and the more realistic aspects of life set in. But because you've not seen that aspect of your partner or how they function in such a situation, it's very new. You're just like, ये क्या हो रहा है?
Yeah.
Suddenly you knowing your partner is lazy, pehle wouldn't be a problem because at that time you would be heading to work. But suddenly now it'll start pincing you.
Yeah.
कि इतना lazy क्यों है? And then the partner will be like, पर तुम्हें तो पता है मैं ऐसा हूँ या ऐसी हूँ. And then it becomes an endless battle. Then it's not us against the world, it's us against each other first, and the
Yeah,
world
yeah.
we've just forgotten the world.
Yeah. So do you think, and I asked this question to somebody else also, do you think couples, when they come together to get married or live in or whatever, before they decide to get married, should go to a
I'm
therapist.
before you were asking, 100%.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And get tested to say, are we like,
Not
Not
even
tested.
tested. I don't say go test it. I just say you need to sit down and have just conversations about how you both live your lives, how you expect a house to function, what you think the day is supposed to look like. Are there certain fundamental behaviors that exist with both of you that could potentially be a concern? Like I'm lazy, my partner is not. We can't be squabbling over this every day.
but you will,
It,
yeah.
yeah. So it's like, dekho, if this is such a big issue, how can we get to a compromise space? Okay, fine, we will do this here, we
Right.
negotiate to this, but in some other place, like, fine, like Monday to Friday, I'll do this, but like on Saturday and Sunday, don't try to annoy me.
Right, right.
So
If there was actually a way to sit down and gauge someone's compatibility essay, I think we would have all shifted to that system a long
Sure.
time ago. I think the beauty about therapy in general is therapy isn't about, hey, this is wrong with you and this needs to change. It is, this is who you are. What can we work with? Let's just, if you feel that you're stuck in this much of a space, let's widen your space a little and see what you can put where in a better way. So, it's almost like you are lazy, you are not. What are, let's say, those particular things that impact you so much? And you just talk it out. Sometimes what happens is, in couples also, they're so busy fighting, no one's actually trying to listen to what the other one's trying to say.
Yeah.
And because it becomes a constant, because you're always just defensive or attacking each other, what happens in therapy is you have a third, unbiased person just sitting there, hearing you and saying, hey, have you maybe looked at it in this way?
yeah.
You're fighting about this, but do you realize you're both maybe fighting about the same thing, but just from different perspectives? What therapy does is it just helps you understand a perspective more
So you
than
think
anything.
marriages should come with a once in 6 months therapy session?
I mean, if that's what they need, sure. I think,
No, but where is the couple which is not having arguments or fights or differences of opinions?
fights are important. I think fights are so important for relationships because you need to fight. You have to have that expelling of energy. You need to argue, but you also need to know then after the argument how to resolve.
Absolutely.
You can't
Okay.
just fight and then be like, okay, fine, whatever, and go in different directions. That's not what I am really like saying, Karo. I'm
Sure,
saying that
sure.
fight, argue. It is important for you to put your points forward.
Sure.
It is important for you to be able to say what you want to. Because if you're in a relationship with them and you're spending the rest of your life with them, you can't tiptoe around this person.
Yeah.
You
Right.
have to be the
Right.
most open book you can be.
After one point, the only person actually you have to have off all guards off of.
So you have to. There is it is impossible for you. And when couples come to me, they're like, oh, but we never fight. And I'm like, acha. Very nice, but what are you really not telling each other? Because there
Right.
is something you're not. Then you're just tiptoeing.
Right.
You should fight. But then then the question is, how are we fighting?
Yeah.
Right? Is this just like, oh my god, like full gali, you are this, you are that? Or are we, and like this was a quote I picked up from a show I really like, where the father says to his son that your mother and I fought, but it was never me against your mom. It was your mom and me against the problem.
Interesting. Yeah.
So you are not fighting with each other. You're fighting against what the issue is. If like one partner is like, oh my god, you don't give me time, and the other partner is like, I'm so busy, you're not understanding. What no one here is able to say is your partner wants to spend more time with you. And you're busy, we get that. Instead of just fighting about this every day, why not we just say, what can we do?
Sure.
Right? So again, it's just fight. But then
Yeah.
what are you doing after the fight?
Yeah.
Are we like really sitting and resolving things?
Yeah.
Are we really trying to understand what the other person is trying to get through to us? And a lot of the times that is what couples also come for, that we're fighting, but we're really not resolving. I've had couple sessions where they're like, we don't get a lot of time together. So like this is that 1 hour in the week where we just have time with each other and I want to just spend it with you. And it's very wholesome. And it's great. But some come with like, actually, this is the issue. This is what we've been having. And it's like, okay. And when we say communication boils down to most of it is because they are really not hearing or listening to what the other person is saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
And it's not wrong to have expectations. But when the other person very blatantly is saying, ki, I'm not going to be able, or I don't want to also live up to this expectation that you might have because your expectation is your own, then how do I kind of reevaluate that expectation I have
Right.
on my own or with that other person?
I also think that when you're bringing someone into your life in such a capacity, when there are two adults, there are two self-sustaining ecosystems of sorts.
Yeah.
If I'm an individual, I'm not just myself. I am also my friends, I'm also my parents, I'm also my sister, I'm also my dog, I'm also my work, I'm also my hobbies, I'm everything. When I'm in a relationship with you, at that moment I'm just me.
Yeah.
The minute we take it a step higher, it's the full ecosystem. So two ecosystems are colliding. The idea isn't that one ecosystem has to consume the other or kind of take over the other. The idea is how do you create a new equilibrium?
Sure.
And for that, there will be discomfort. It's
Yeah.
only normal that there will be discomfort. Different people react to it differently. What therapy does is it just tells you that this is your discomfort. Let's try to find a way out of it.
Right.
You know, and find what that new equilibrium is like, but with both ecosystems involved, not just one.
While there are more women coming for therapy, more women are quoting they have depression and all that. I read the statistics somewhere that there are more men who are committing suicide. Is that true? So that means the problem is with both. Some are saying, some are not saying. The second is more for younger people, or actually not just younger people, all kinds of people, with the coming in of the dating apps, right? People are dating multiple people, and it's become much easier to find somebody to date than it was maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
Is that risky? Is that people who are going through it? I was speaking to a younger person who was saying, our generation is confused about will we ever be able to settle down with somebody because we overanalyze everybody that we spend time with. So is that risky for them?
I think it's both good and bad.
Okay.
The way I see it. I feel like in earlier generations, the intent of dating was very simple. It was, I am dating you to get married.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, then it's for serious reasons.
Yeah.
With time, dating has gotten more definitions into the mix.
Sure.
Situationships,
Sure.
benching.
I think we've complicated it so
We have.
much.
We've complicated it too much. And this again comes with social media, of course. But it's almost like when you have a dating app, it is a great opportunity for you to meet someone. However, of course, there are aspects of safety, of, and answers. And it's almost like you talk a bit, but because you're texting, you're suddenly like, nahi hai, that connect isn't there, end it. There is also guilt because suddenly you see that everyone around you, and it hit me. When I turned 24, 25, my batchmates or juniors were getting married and I was single. Suddenly it hit ki, am I lonely? Is there something wrong with me? So then got on the dating app, couldn't find anyone there because of whatever reasons. And then suddenly I was like, there's something wrong with me. I only am incapable of finding someone. And then I immediately was like, what am I saying? Why am I putting so much pressure? I'm only 25. What age is 25?
Right, yeah.
But suddenly that pressure just set in. And I did digress a little from the question, but I know you had a point to make.
I think people in India don't know how to date
Okay.
because I don't think people know what dating is. So there is dating, then there is relationship.
Right.
When I was growing up, you didn't do dating. You just dove into the relationship and you're like, Arey bhai, what is this? Dating is a concept that you see more in the Western world where it's you're meeting different people, you're going on dates, and then eventually you kind of realize that, okay, you know what? This is the person I want to end up with, and I think I really vibe with them and I'm really going to go through that process. It's also more organic in the Western world for us to meet people more organically.
Sure.
You're more open to like, oh, I'm going to see someone at the bar and I like make eye contact and I might exchange a number and stuff like that. It's normalized there. It's something that you're more open to. Dating is a very newer concept in the country.
Right.
People have now become comfortable with the fact, telling their parents that I have a boyfriend or I am with someone. I could not imagine if I was in high school and I had a boyfriend, the last people in the world who are ever going to know are my parents. But now everyone's open and they know they want to talk about it or they're posting it and stuff like that. So in all of that, I think it's also tougher to I think COVID also added a lot to it. Meeting people organically is really tough.
Right.
It's not easy. And also, I'm really sorry, it's such a safety hassle.
It is.
Oh, yeah,
It
I'm
is
sure.
such a safety hassle. As a woman, I know how I'm always just like, oh my God, I'm here. Is someone going to put something in my drink? Is some weird interaction going to happen?
If someone comes and talks to you at a bar or anywhere in a public space, your first thought is, do I need to be alert? Like, what? So you naturally are on guard, so you're not your natural self also.
Right. Because it's also something that's not so natural in
Yeah.
our culture.
Yeah.
It's just not so normalized. So there is that aspect of it. I think another aspect of it is I don't think like stuff like situationship and all of these random steps that come in the middle. I think people, I don't know, I think I sometimes I do often wonder that what is happening. I think what has also happened is that while growing up, we have seen a lot of arranged marriages and we've seen partnerships where we have seen great companionship, but we might have not have seen love.
Sure.
And I think I don't, and like I'll talk about just my clientele, like when I keep my clientele in mind. I don't think I have met maybe one or two, but I don't think I have met clients who said, yeah, my parents were happy with each other, or I love each other, or I have this amazing, lovely relationship that I want to emulate.
Right. Right.
Right?
Right.
So
Very good point.
then the
Yeah.
thing is that do I want to live like that? Do I want to live a life where I have a companion, but I'm not going to be in love entirely?
Right.
Right? And that is a fear too. So there is hesitation. There is hesitation to commit. We've also seen so many situations where people can't exit also out of terrible marriages. So then it's like, oh, if I enter, will I not be able to exit?
Right.
Will I get the support? So there's just a lot of hesitation to fully commit, to fully just, act, kind of like fully give into the process as well. Dating apps have made it easy, but at some level, I do also think that there is a superficiality to it. Only because there is just a little bit of information that we get. And what that also then leads to is so much of just like anxiety and invalidation that, oh my
Right.
God, people are not talking to me. And then that's like another complete spiral.
Right.
But like I've met 19-year-olds in sessions who are telling me, what if I never find someone? And I'm like, you're 19. What are you talking about?
I have had guy friends just say, I've not gotten one swipe, and then go
Yeah.
into a shell.
Yeah.
It's a thing. Like even with, it's not a hidden fact. A woman on a dating app will get far more
Sure.
likes than an average,
Responses, yeah.
on average than a man. But like suddenly, even between women, it's, oh, I just got on this app and I got like 100 likes, and someone on the side is like, I got 50 since like three. It's been 3 days. So then suddenly, am I not desirable enough? What will
Yeah,
make me
yeah.
desirable? But I think there's also a bigger thing we need to notice, which is, I can sit here and I can give you my view, and it's coming honestly from a place of privilege and also the upbringing that I've had.
Yeah.
India currently is stuck in a bit of a time hole. Is time loop is what I believe. If we look at America, for example, the community in general is far more progressive and has been. India currently has gotten on this Western wave. We love the concept of dating apps, but we do need to realize that there are far more nuances and variables at play with a population that's so large.
Yeah.
Even in a Delhi itself, a Delhi NCR region, you have so many communities that function in such different ways. Upbringing is so different that their expectation from a dating app will be very different. Similarly, the type of people, like if I were to go to a Bangalore, having been raised in Delhi, and even go to Bangalore and kind of see the localites there, for me, if I lived in a bubble here, there I would feel like meko koi mil nahi raha. But the truth is, it's just because of the community that I've grown up in here. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with desirability and all of that. So there are far more layers to this than probably that there were in America.
Yeah.
Which people don't realize. सबको लग रहा है कि आ गया है, so you're suddenly like Western, so everything will be like
Yeah.
easy
Right.
flowing. It's not.
Yeah.
And you need to accept it. Like it's okay, but I think this pressure that it brings with it is it can lead to a lot of self-esteem issues.
It is. Yeah. That's what it
Yeah.
is doing.
Also, to just add, it's okay to not be in a relationship.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people need to hear that. It's okay if you're single. Just because pop culture, movies, books, whatever says you should have this romance and you should have this partner. Even if like people are constantly saying you need companionship, it's okay if you don't have someone right now. It is better that
Right.
than you just, accommodating and not caring and settling for something that might not be right for you.
Right,
I think
right.
there's this pressure to be in a relationship, which should not be there. It's okay if it's not social currency. It doesn't make you cooler. It honestly is not going to it shouldn't change who you are and what people see you as. People really need to just get comfortable with that aspect, that it's okay that I don't have someone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so much knowledge, so much information. It's been an eye opener for me. And I'm sure a lot of people watching this are thanking both of you. Some might be questioning. There'll be a lot of questions that will come up. But it's great that people like you who are young enough in your journeys have started this and are helping adults and younger people. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you
And
so much for having us.
Yeah.
it's been great speaking to both of you.
Likewise.
Likewise.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.